Hey YouTube, welcome back. This will be another Crime Couples episode, and today we're going to be looking at the disappearance of Ashley Freeman and Lauria Bible and the murders of the Freeman family. In this case, it's very in-depth, so we're going to try to keep it as best as we can. Basically, these were two teenage girls who disappeared from the home of the Freemans in Welch, Oklahoma, in the middle of a fire. Completely disappeared and vanished.
And we're doing a shout out to Dana, one of our subscribers. She did suggest this case. So thank you, Dana. It was very interesting to kind of get into all this. I mean, I've watched an episode about it previously, I think on TV, but we actually delved into this and went over a ton of files regarding this. So thank you again. I hope you enjoy. So on the evening of December 29, 1999, it was Ashley Freeman's birthday. And she thought of no better way to celebrate than to have her best friend Lauria Bible come over. So earlier that day, her mom and her family had visited a local pizzeria, and Lauria was there. They went and stopped by Laura's house, asked her parents, hey, can I stay over another night? They agreed. She grabbed some clothes and went back to Ashley's house. They had cake and ice cream, and Ashley's boyfriend did come over and give her a turquoise necklace for his birthday present, and he was there for about an hour and he left. He said he was out around 9:30. So the girls, did their thing all night like teenage girls do, went to bed that night, and I believe the area there is very rural, so you don't have neighbors right on top of you. So there was a couple driving by that I think that said they worked at a local hospital. It was about 5:30 in the morning. They were driving to work and they saw the family's mobile home ablaze. So they did call fire and EMS at that point. So when fire arrived on scene, the mobile home was fully engulfed in flames. They did their best to put it out, and I believe the police officers showed up. The fire was at 5:30 when it was first noticed, and the arson team and all that came around noon. They were searching all the rubble and going through everything. They did come across Kathy Freeman's body. They did take her back to the coroner's office and find out that she was not killed by the flames and the carbon monoxide, that she was actually shot in the back of the head?
In the back of the head.
In the back of the head. So that is what killed her. She didn't have any soot or anything in her lungs. And they said that her body was pretty well preserved because she was on a waterbed, and that kind of protected her.
When the fire flames bursted, the water just kind of helped preserve the body from burning.
Right. So they're going through the house, and so mind you, there are 3 other people in the house. They did find Kathy's body, but the 2 girls and her husband, Danny Freeman, were still missing. They were there at noon, and I'm not sure what time this all wrapped up, but they said around 6 o'clock, so 6 hours after evidence collection and all that stuff, they handed off the scene to Dwayne Vansell, which was Danny's brother.
So after such a short amount of time, they pretty much released the scene.
And they still don't know where these 3 people are. So then, anybody can go through the scene. They said that there were feral cats running around. It's in the country.
People walking through doing whatever.
Yeah.
And Danny's brother had mentioned that he said right away, this was a red flag. This doesn't feel right. Correct. This doesn't seem right. There's a huge fire. There's people missing, and you're going to release the scene?
Yeah. So they were saying, the word at the police department was, Danny was supposedly a small-time marijuana grower, seller. I guess in that area, marijuana is pretty prevalent. And then later on in the 90s, it started to, move towards methamphetamine. So they said that he was kind of like a small-time drug dealer, and he may have owed money and was in debt to people. So he murdered his wife and took the girls. So that was, the first day, what they were all saying.
But they did find some weird things. So they found their car and the keys inside.
Her wallet.
Yeah, all their belongings were there. The girls too, all their belongings were there. Danny's belongings were there. nothing was out of the ordinary missing except for
the cops were just like, okay, we're done. Here you go.
So the parents of Lauria Bible were Lauren and Jay. Obviously, when this all happened, they did get word of it. They got calls and stuff that, hey, the Freeman's house was up in flames. And so immediately they went to the scene. Now, during the day of the 30th, when all this investigation was going on, they were not allowed to go on the scene or do anything else. They're behind the caution tape, of course. However, once they released the scene to Danny Freeman's brother, they started, saying they agreed with him. This is not right. This doesn't feel right. We want explanation. Where's my daughter? Right? Where's their child? So the day after
daybreak, they said, as early as the sun came up, they were over there.
That's right. So they went back over to the crime scene. Right? They decided we're going to go look through it. They're going to go search through it. And so Jay Bible said he was searching through some of the rubble, kicking through some of it. Not 5 minutes into looking, he came across what he thought looked odd, and what he was actually seeing was the body of Danny Freeman, so her husband, who had also been shot.
They found that later at the coroner's office again.
But it was pretty obvious, he said, because it was execution style, so his face was no longer. Looking further into it, they said that they could see imprints of boots and other debris onto it, where the examiners who were going through and doing the investigation, were literally walking over and on his body. These
are experts.
Yeah. They called the police and they said, listen, we have another body down here. You have to get back out here and re-examine this. So
the girls could be there.
Right, right. So the investigations, the crime scene investigation, police came back out and they tried to kick out the Bibles. They tried to say, listen, we're going to take this back over. You need to, and Lauren Bible, the mother of Laura, said, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to stay here. Your experts couldn't do this. We're going to see this through and hold your hand through this so that we understand what process is going on. And really, from that point, Lauren Bible took this investigation in her own hands and ran with it. And she still is.
This is an ongoing thing. This happened in 1999, and there are still developments in the case to this day. So this is, 20 years of history that we're covering. There's a lot of bits and pieces that we're just going to kind of skim over, but we're going to definitely hit the big points. So, they were saying she met with cartels, these murderers, prisoners.
If she had a lead, no matter where it was, how seedy the place is, how unsafe, she was there. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so talk about a mother's love. She could have been killed numerous times, and she put her life in danger for answers for her daughter. Okay, so something we came upon while reading that we found kind of interesting. About 2 weeks before this fire, Danny and Dwayne were out at the property working. And out of nowhere, Danny says, if something happens to me, I don't care what it is, look at the Craig County Sheriff's Department. And why, you ask? Well, approximately a year prior to Danny's son, Shane, was kind of mixed up with the wrong people. I guess he was a really big athlete in school and was doing well, and then he just went down the wrong path. He started using drugs, stealing, was involved in thefts, but they were low-level crimes, but he was known by the police department. A year prior to, Shane was mixed up. He owed some money, something. He ended up stealing a truck, and he did have some weapons in the truck with him. So they had found the truck on the side of the road. I don't know how police got called, but police responded. Shane got out. They said he was armed, and then they said he wasn't armed, but he ended up getting fatally wounded. So I don't know if this ties into the animosity between Craig County Sheriffs and with the Freemans, because OSBI was called after they found Danny Freeman's body to come take over the case, because there was some sort of bad blood, and you want the police department doing the best especially if there's still people missing.
You don't want it to be biased at all.
Right. So OSBI did come take over the crime scene. Like I was mentioning earlier, this area of Oklahoma is kind of not the best. So there have been theories out there that these girls were alive for days following their abduction. Basically, the night of December 29th, her boyfriend was the last person of a non-Freeman to see these people alive. So there have been accounts that they were at a New Year's Eve party, but they were bound and gagged and drugged and sexually abused and or molested. We'll get later into these
allegations.
Later on, because there have been some people that have been charged with this crime.
So as Ashley was saying, the volume of serial killers working in this area of Oklahoma at the same time was like just insane. Like they had tons, right? They had a few that stuck out. There was one in particular, Tommy Lynn Sells. Now he actually wrote to the paper claiming responsibility for the murders and the kidnaps of these girls. Now he was a very well-known serial killer in this area. I think he accounted for like 12 different murders that were claimed and proven, right? He evaded police for a long time. He was really transient. Yep.
Yeah.
So he was actually serving a jail sentence in Texas for the murder of another girl that was one day prior to the disappearance of Ashley and Laura. So he wrote to the paper claiming that he did it. Now he kind of used this as a ruse because he did later recant it. Basically, after giving this testimony, he used this as an excuse to get out of jail.
To get better food, to watch better TV. I mean,
to get out of the cell, to kind of be like, oh, right. I think they're buried here, or I think I dumped their bodies here.
Yeah, it was like a 2-week investigation. He took them, and in this area, there's a lot of mines. They did shut down in the 60s, but the holes are still there. And they're like, some of them are 300, 350 feet deep, and there's waterways going underneath them. So, I mean, it's not hard to hide a body in this area.
Toss it in and you'd never find it again.
There it goes. I mean, they looked in quite a few wells because that's where Tommy Lynn said that he had put them, and they went down and did their investigating, but they were unable to find any human remains.
All right. So now we're a few years down the line. They're still running investigations. They're still trying to track down any leads they have.
But this family needs closure.
Yeah. So they come across a person which is well known also for being a serial killer and many other things.
A meth user.
His name is Jeremy Jones, which we actually have spoken about him before in the Patrice Indris case. He was also a suspect in that case. As well, so he's making his way through.
We were reading that he's a prime suspect in like 15 plus murders.
The guy's psycho, so
yeah, he should remain in prison forever.
So he was actually serving a sentence for raping and murdering another young girl, and then trying to set her on fire. So arson, and he was serving this sentence for this act that was out of Mobile, Alabama. Now he had said he wanted to come clean about a confession about the 2 girls from Oklahoma. So he started talking about this. Now obviously people started perking up and listening to it. He started going into details about different things. He had said that Danny had owed a friend of his money for drug use or whatnot, and he was going there to teach him a lesson. And he didn't realize the girls were there until after it was done. He walked out of the house and started the fire. They ran out. He told them to get in the truck, and at that point, he took them and killed them and dumped their bodies somewhere. So the police started investigating this. They start going through everything, and he started. He ended up pretty much doing the same thing that the other serial killer Sells did a few years prior. He led them on a wild goose chase. Told them all these different places. Led them down here, and then eventually did recant his story, saying that he wasn't involved. Now, the interesting thing about Jeremy's story is a lot of people believe that it is, there could be some truth to it and there could be some lies to it. Usually they said with these psycho
serial killers.
That they are, they give some but not all. So we have to take a little bit of truth with it.
And they inflate,
a lot.
Yeah.
So, however, the interesting part of this is, so Jeremy was in Welch, Oklahoma, the day that the fire happened. He was actually arrested for public intoxication
and paraphernalia.
At 3:59
in the morning.
Now they had said, again, public intoxication.
He was like 15 minutes away from this, so they were trying to line up. Could he? I think it was Galena. Could he get arrested there?
Right, it was Galena.
Yeah. Could he get arrested there? The fire got started at 5:30. Could he drive there, pick up the girls, start the fire? The people drive by, see the fire. He go dump their bodies. The timeline, they were trying to match it up, but they said it could be possible. So there's a will, there's a way.
You have this kind of person like this who's given this kind of information and has, recorded source of being in that area within that with a small like 15-minute time frame like that, where you could be close enough. It's very possible. So a lot of people think that he was involved some way, just doesn't give all the information.
And he was a meth user. And, the drug dealers in each town, whether it's Welch, Oklahoma, Cleveland, Ohio, Orlando, Florida, they all know each other, and there's rival properties, and I sell to this person, you sell to this person, and it starts with the big guy and tramples down to the little guys. So, I'm certain that they all knew each other, and that's why they were saying that he was a meth user, he was a cooker, and there was also a guy named Cowboy that was very prevalent in this community at this time, that, they all knew each other. Were they at the party? Did they tie these girls up? Did they drug these girls? What happened to these girls? And nobody's being truthful with anything. We've still not found them, and it's been nearly 5 years.
We're about 10 years after the murder at this point, and there's really been nothing. So there's been dead-end leads, nothing really coming of anything, and there's still nowhere the girls are not found.
And Lori's still searching, so she puts out a Facebook page.
Social media becomes pretty prevalent, so they said, why don't you make some social media posts and get out there? So she does. She creates a Facebook page to try to see if she can get any more information. She said people started chiming in right away, giving leads, giving information. So one of the tips they had come through was from a credible source, and they did look at it very seriously. This person said, you need to take a look at Charlie Kreider. Now, when looking at him, they realized, hey, this guy was a good friend, close with Danny Freeman. Mm-hmm. They worked together. They actually grew pot and sell pot together, right? So they were in drug business together. And they actually found out that he was serving a sentence for murder of a woman that he worked with. He worked on buses for a school, and she was a cafeteria lady. He killed her, and they found her I think half naked and strangled. So he was serving a sentence for that, which we don't think is correct amount of time, but he served 14 years.
Yeah, and was released.
In 2017.
Released after strangling and ripping and clothes out.
Right? Oh, so they did look into him. They actually investigated his property. So when he got arrested, he ended up selling his property, and people were saying you need to check different spots on the property.
So they dug and dug.
They went through it all, and they still came up empty-handed. They didn't find anything or any clues to the girls ever being there.
So in 2016, the sheriff that was in charge of this was Sheriff Suter. He was up for re-election, but he did end up resigning his position, and a Heath Winfrey was elected the new sheriff in 2017. So upon going over all the evidence, and it just seemed like anytime the sheriff changed hands, they're like, our biggest thing is this Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman, but nothing ever got done. Okay, so he's looking through all this evidence that's 20 years old and finds this box. And they said it was like this mystery box that contained all this new evidence, and it was overlooked by Suter's administration. So this mystery box had quite a bit of new evidence in it, and it led to new suspects and new people of interest. So there were three gentlemen, Phil Welch, David Pennington, and Ronnie Dean Busick. So these were also well-known meth cookers, meth dealers, meth doers in this area. And supposedly these were the three guys that had brought Ashley and Laura to this party and drugged them and sexually molested them and whatnot. Unfortunately, the only one still living is Ronnie Busick. I was listening to a podcast the other day about these girls, and the pastor of this area had mentioned that, the men who died, Phil Welch and David Peddington, that, they served their sentence because they died really horrific deaths. And he didn't go into it, but, these three guys are now looked at as the three guys who did burn the house down, shoot the mom and dad, and take these girls. So at this point, those guys are dead, so we can't do anything for them. Ronnie Busick was indicted April 20th, 2018. I guess the family went to the courthouse, and then he was indicted 3 days later. So that is what is still going on at this point in 2020. I couldn't really find anything updated at that point, but this Ronnie Busick, 20 years later, we finally kind of have an idea of who did this to the girls.
Unfortunately, we watched a few episodes of different documentaries. He's very much older now, and he's probably done enough drugs to kill Keith Richards. So he's not all there. So I think they're partly they were talking about claiming he's incompetent currently. He can't give any details. He's not admitting to anything.
Right.
He's all over the place. And so there was other accounts where they had anonymous people talking about different things where they said, yes, these people had footage, had pictures of the girls.
And everyone was scared of them in the community. They talked about girlfriends, and then everyone's faces were blinked out, and they gave them initials like EB or WF, because I don't know why they're still scared. I mean, they didn't want anyone to know who they were on this documentary, and I think still anywhere. And
apparently these guys had threatened anyone that talked that they would kill them. And they said they'd meet the same fate as the parents and the girls, right?
Right.
So it's very frustrating. For the parents, I just can't imagine, they just want to bring their child home. They just want to be able to have their child and bury them. And to me, that's extremely heartbreaking.
I think they were declared dead, but like Harrison was saying, the mom, Lorraine, is still not okay. She's not at rest. There's no closure. She
doesn't take any breaks either. She's full on the gas all the time.
And she still doesn't know where her daughter is, and that would be heartbreaking to me. I mean, I don't know if I could go to bed at night and not think about that every night.
Yeah,
where are they laying? Where are they at? Where's the closure for this family? So there actually is a phone number that I looked up. It's 918-244-3625. Or you can visit Find Laura it's a Facebook page. So
it's Find Lauria Bible. Now, Laura is spelled a little differently. It was hard for me to get it, but it's Lauria and then Bible.
Bible. B-I-B-L-E. So if you guys have any information, any tip, if you're in that area, you remember something.
And you can do it anonymously.
Right. So do what you can out there.
So we really appreciate everyone for watching. Again, if you have any information, you can leave it in the comments. You can go leave an anonymous tip on the number, on the Facebook page, anything like that. We really do appreciate you watching these videos. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and likes. We know we're doing good. Also comment just to banter with us if you'd like. You can just give your input. We don't care. We enjoy that. Don't forget, we need you to hit the subscribe button. If you don't hit the subscribe button, then your electric bill is going to be higher than you want it to be this month. So you don't want that to happen, so you have to hit subscribe.
And thank you again for Dana for suggesting this case. I know you suggested another one. We're going to look into that one here in the near future. But thank you again. We really enjoyed doing this.
And by no means is this all the detail. We do encourage you to research this on your own. There is a lot of little tidbits here and there. And so there's enough for you to go down a rabbit hole.